Welcome into the Blurred Wire. It's been a minute since we've been able to get back together. Welcome back into the Blurred Wire, Ty. How are you doing?
Ooh, it's so cold here at in nuclear winter.
Yes, it is. It is frigid outside. So frigid, it's like there's almost no signs of life anywhere. And that's
I,
because we are
I
talking about Snowpiercer. And we're mainly talking about it because AMC just aired their season 4 finale of Snowpiercer, which I believe is already completely out. So, if you watch the show with Daveed Diggs, Jennifer Connelly, I think Clark Gregg joins the cast. Um, Check that out. But actually, we are taking it back to the movie that I don't know if it inspired the TV show or what kind of had it, but we're going to take a look at Snowpiercer back in 2013. Did it come out? 2013?
2013. Certainly the success of the movie
Yes. Agreed. Yeah, the success of the
inspired
movie.
the television show.
Yes. And we are looking at Snowpiercer from 2013, the post-apocalyptic film that starred Chris Evans and Tilda Swinton.
Mhm.
Chris Evans actually has another chilling movie coming out pretty soon with Red One by Dwayne Johnson. With Dwayne Johnson? Have you seen the previews for that?
Nope.
No, not what? Okay. It's an interesting story. Basically, J.K. Simmons is Santa Claus
Uh,
and they have to go find him. And Dwayne Johnson is supposed to be like his chief elf, and he hires Chris Evans, who's like this random not really moronic, but like this private investigator who's supposed to be good, but he's also like Dwayne Johnson's going to play the goody two shoes roles. And basically, it's like if Tony Stark and Captain America went on a journey, except this time Chris Evans is going to be Tony and like wisecracking and sarcastic, and Dwayne Johnson is all like stoic and serious.
and serious. Is this
Hmm.
coming out straight to Netflix?
No, this is coming out in theaters. This is a
This is
big
coming out
blockbuster.
no. See,
November 13th.
because the way that you described it, it sounds like one of those like gray man kind of like
It does
generic
sound like
action
that, does it?
movies. That's
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, this is a straight to Netflix original.
Nope.
Um,
I think in the trailers, like Dwayne Johnson gets in a fight with the polar bear, and then he like cuts a snowman in half. So they are going all out with it.
wow.
Um, but we're not going to talk about that because it hasn't come out yet. So
Oh
we're
my
going to talk
God,
about
Lucy
Snowpiercer.
Liu isn't. Forget Snowpiercer. We're talking about Red One now. Lucy Liu's in this
I know,
movie?
right? Like if the
That
premise was better, I'd be like, this is a very stacked cast that I'd want to check out. But I'm like, do I care about a guy trying to save Santa Claus? I
this
don't really know.
This is the NJK Simmons. This is the like most stacked cast for a movie that I have never heard of and like have
I've
zero
never heard of.
interest in.
Okay,
That
so here's
is
my one question. Does
yeah.
Dwayne Johnson elevate the cast for you, or is it despite Dwayne Johnson being in there?
I don't have any problems with Dwayne Johnson.
You feel like it helps?
He's a he is not the leading role of a lot of the kinds of movies that I enjoy, but I think you can't discount his charm. He's an incredibly charming man from everything that I've ever seen about him.
Hmm.
And he's incredibly huge and popular. Like,
Oh, I thought you meant that
oh
he's
no.
just like, I'm like, well, yeah, that is a defining characteristic of
And he's
Dwayne
a
The
very
Rock
large,
Johnson.
muscular man. So
Yes.
how could I not? No, I think
Okay.
he's just there to me.
He's just
He
there.
doesn't move the needle.
Yeah.
He's there.
Okay. Well, again, we are still going to talk about Snowpiercer
Anyway,
as
all
we
that to
were
say,
mentioning. Yeah, we're still talking about
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer, but check out the trailer for Red One. Maybe we'll do it later on. Who knows? But Snowpiercer, I remember I was on Tubi one day, just scrolling through, and then I saw Chris Evans and Tilda Swinton, and
Mhm.
I was like, "Yes, please." And I just clicked
Mhm.
on it. I was like, I had no idea what it was, never heard anything about it.
Which is
Know what
very
it was
strange
based
because you
on?
had not heard about this movie
Not even a little bit.
when it had come out.
Nope. Hadn't heard about the TV show. And this was only like,
Hadn't heard about the graphic novel.
No. This was only like 7 months ago, and I think it was featured on Tubi on like their homepage just because the fourth season was coming out and this was related. So they were like, hey, let's put Snowpiercer on our top because people might be searching for it. So, and then I watched it. And I remember while I was watching, it's like, oh, the reviews are really good too. I don't know if I saw those after or like while I was watching it, but I remember
Mhm.
seeing it and being like, this movie is awesome.
Mhm.
This movie is just as good as the critics say. And it's based upon this premise that the apocalypse kind of has come because global warming got so bad that the
Mhm.
planet was about to be destroyed. So scientists, in order to reverse it, sent up a device that ended up plunging the entire Earth into the next ice age.
Mhm.
So before, everything started freezing over, this
Mhm.
guy, Mr. Wilton or Wilford. Mr.
Mhm.
Wilford built this long, long train and everyone like fought their way onto it. And you've got this train that's divided into class systems. And so, it's kind of like every post-apocalyptic narrative because there's in most post-apocalyptic narratives, there's always some kind of class system. Like Hunger Games, you have the Capital, District 1, 2, all the way down to 12. Divergent, you've got the different series. I feel bad putting Divergent in the same sentence as Snowpiercer, so anyone watching, I apologize for that. But either way, you still
It's the
see,
generation we grew up in. It was right alongside Hunger Games and the what is it, Maze Runners of like
yeah,
that dystopian YA peak that just emerged out of nowhere.
right, and you had all those class systems from there. Now, Snowpiercer itself is it based on a book or a graphic novel?
It is I believe it's a French
Oh yeah,
graphic
a French novel. And
that's
that book, I'm trying to see when did it come out. So it came out in 1982, I believe, or somewhere around there.
1982.
Okay.
Yes,
So
originally.
I say all that to say it probably influenced a lot of these young A novels that we got by Suzanne Collins and everybody else. That kind of wrote these dystopian. It was part of like it and Mad Max probably helped influence it because like, and I kind of like the way that this one does it because you can tell the difference in the influences. Because Mad Max inspired a lot of apocalyptic dystopian future
Hmm.
narratives, but Mad Max, like, it kind of has class systems, but it's more about everyone is crazy and you don't really know what's going to happen. And it
Hmm.
just kind of feels like it's more about like how um like there are no laws anymore.
Hmm.
And this is the inspiration for what happens if the class systems that we kind of have right now in a dystopian future when the apocalypse comes, what if they get even worse, right? And that's
Hmm.
kind of where we end up with Snowpiercer. So, I just realized I've been talking for a long time. So,
Hmm.
I will let you. What did you like about Snowpiercer? To you, what made it good? Because we both agree this was a great movie. What stood out for you, and what made it hit you the way that it did?
Uh, I I like a lot about it. I was kind of like you where I missed it when it first came out. I did not see it in 2013. I think I saw it in like a few years later, for the first time, and it was very captivating. It was at a period of time when it came out that dystopian fiction was really popular, but I always remember it being as like one of my preferred dystopian fictions. I think like the narrative device of kind of moving from the very back of a train to the very front of the train, and seeing as each travel car gets progressively better and better as you kind of reach like the middle ground like threshold into the upper class. I think it really works in a very satisfying way. Like a lot of the narrative moments and like the thematic messaging also ties in really well with like the physical construction of the movie itself. Because when you start off, it's very grungy and dirty and poverty stricken. And by the end, you're in these very lavish, opulent travel cars that otherwise, strip it from the context. You just take the scene and it looks like they're just traveling through the Swiss Alps or something. Like
Mhm.
it looks like it could be from any other period of time, even though it is, post-apocalyptic. And I really enjoyed it. I think the cast is really great. I think if anything, it was a treasure to have such an early introduction to Bong Joon-ho as a
Mhm.
director. Because I think it's very important to point out that this is a Korean film,
Right.
and I
Right.
I think when I first saw it, I did not recognize it as such. And I think it was a very, at least for me, an early introduction to films outside of the US. And I think he did a really amazing job adapting the material, and it, eventually led us to 2019's like Parasite, which really caught fire and exploded. Um,
Yeah. And I think that's even more like impressive because like, to bring Chris Evans into the South Korean movie, like remember Chris Evans had already starred in two different blockbuster superhero franchises. He had already been part of the billion-dollar hit The Avengers. So he's a well-established actor in 2013, probably one of the biggest rising stars. And I think that's the only reason why I didn't even know when this movie came out, because it was a South Korean movie. So the marketing here, I don't think it was marketed as strongly as it was, obviously in South Korea, which is probably more of their target audience. Um, but it was like, I think this is one of my favorite performances by him. Dare I say, is my favorite performance by him because like I'm not gonna like he's fantastic as Captain America. Don't get
Wait,
me wrong.
over Red One? Like this is your favorite Chris
It
Evans over
might be
Red
my
One?
favorite over Red One. I mean, just
How?
looking at the trailers,
I never
I
thought
know.
anything could dethrone it for you.
Never thought it was possible. Uh, yeah, because I mean, like in Fantastic Four as Johnny Storm, Chris Evans has is playing the same character he's always played.
Mhm.
The incredibly attractive jockey kind of guy. Same guy he plays in Scott Pilgrim, pretty much the same one and not another teen movie. That's why they selected him to play Johnny Storm because they're like, oh yeah, he can do this. That's why it was super surprising when he became Captain America. So surprising, I didn't realize it was the same guy until several years after. I did not know Captain America was Johnny Storm, and seen those original Fantastic Four movies many, many times.
Mhm.
So, for him to do a completely 180 to go play this Boy Scout in Captain America was incredible in and of itself. That just shows how much range he has. But
Mhm.
to me, this role right here, this is might be his most intense role that I've ever seen him in. And I think the way he portrays it, where he's nothing is going to stop him, nothing is going to get in his way, and he's so like violent, I guess, in the like it's hard to find another word for because like he's literally violent, obviously, while they're trying to slaughter their way to the top of the train. But his intentions feel violent in that he's so desperate because of the situation that they're living in. It's like, we have to do this. We have no choice. We got to get up there. So we will cut down anything in our way to get there.
Mhm.
And I don't think he's ever displayed that in a movie up until this point. Like, if I was going to choose someone to play the lead role and that's what I wanted the character to be, I don't think Chris Evans would have been top of my list.
Mhm.
So again, it shows his range, shows how he can do so many different things.
Mhm.
And then of course Tilda Swinton is always fantastic in anything I've ever seen her in. I don't think I've seen her in a bad role ever. Because she always captures the screen every time she's on it.
I
And
Yes,
yeah,
100% agree. And do you want to know a really interesting bit of trivia? Uh,
go ahead.
Bong Joon-ho originally had John C. Riley in mind for that role.
Interesting.
And then I don't know how they got to the Tilda Swinton of it all. But I don't think I could imagine two actors who are
So
further
like,
apart
yeah,
in style and mannerisms and character. Because like just copy and paste John C. Riley into that role, and it's not the same.
yeah, no, not even close.
Like seeing Tilda Swinton there, it
Hmm.
feels like I cannot imagine anyone getting as into character or as as doing as such a good job of being this I don't know what you're gonna do creepy
Yeah, spine tingly.
calculating villainous
Hmm.
person. Yes.
And again, I mean, then again, maybe, it's like she was the White Witch. So maybe he was like, Toastman's
Hmm.
got more experience with the snow and the cold and everything, so we're just gonna go with her instead. She's kind of got that experience, because that's what I grew up on.
Right.
Like I always say, like a lot of people, like for me, that the Chronicles of Narnia was like my Lord of the Rings. That
Hmm.
was my, the war battle scene that's, seeing as a kid. So anyway, I was already used to that from her. I knew exactly what she could bring, and that's why I selected this movie, and she did not disappoint in the slightest. And we talked about it a little bit earlier too. Like I said, I think the movie is fantastic just in the brutality that we see and the way that they're living and what they do in order to try to fight this class system that's been put
Hmm.
upon them just so they can live.
Hmm.
Um, I was mentioning a little bit earlier, the ending kind of fell off for me just when it kind of started getting so ethereal, and then Wilford just kind of like when Wilford was like, I orchestrated this entire thing, and then he offers the role to Chris Evans. And I was kind of like thinking like, why didn't that hit as hard for me? And I realized like it's not exactly the same, but like that's meant to be a plot twist. And I realized, like, again, I've only seen this movie like a few months ago. So obviously, well after I've seen Loki.
Hmm.
And to me, like, this ending is just like Loki. But again, Loki is just like this movie because this movie came out first.
Hmm.
So, and this graphic, I mean, even before then, the graphic novel obviously came out first. So when I
Right.
was watching it, I think like, maybe I'll have to give it another try, see if I can get past that. But I don't really know how because I've already seen it. So, like, it felt like a plot twist, but it felt like it didn't feel like a unique plot twist. I'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, the villain's gonna say he orchestrated this whole thing, and here you take it over. Like, and it was like, okay, where have I seen that before? And I'm like, oh, wait, actually, I have seen that before, but
Hmm.
that's because the order in which I watched them didn't match the order in which they came out. So,
It is also the ending to Charlie Willy Wonka and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory
oh, maybe subconsciously I was thinking about that too.
because he does
Um,
get offered the the entirety of the
yeah,
Chocolate Factory at the end of that movie.
yeah, and he did orchestrate the whole thing, like those two. Okay, yeah, that's
He's
really not
trying
an
to
original
find
idea.
the
Yeah, but I feel
which
like and because of like all the
yeah.
Marvelness of it, because you got the Ancient One and you got Captain America and Snowpiercer, I think I just like instantly go Marvel, and that's why I didn't think of like the Chocolate Factory, but it's a good point.
They're really quick, really, I promise, really quick side tangent.
Hmm.
Speaking of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, there is an excellent fan theory out there that the Snowpiercer universe, specifically this movie and this movie alone, only based off of that, is in the exact same universe as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Willy Wonka
What?
movie with Johnny Depp. There is a someone made a really great YouTube video explaining the whole theory. I'm not gonna try to explain it. I will just say do yourself a favor and look it up. It as ridiculous as it sounds, they bring up so much evidence that feels like even by the end you'll feel a little, yeah, maybe this is all the same.
You should have told me about that. We would have done that instead.
It it is such a fascinating. I honestly I forgot about it until I
Just
mentioned
mention Charlie and the
yeah,
Chocolate
Charlie and the
Factory.
Chocolate Factory. It's a really great watch. If I can add even just one view extra to that video, I would love to. I'll send it to you later, Will, so you can see it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Because I know I saw an interesting fact. Yeah, and I just saw Rebel Ridge last night with Anna Sophia Robb, who was also in this movie. Rebel Ridge, fantastic movie, by the way. Highly recommend. It's on Netflix. But I just found out interesting fact. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the kid who plays Charlie, Peter Ostrom, that's his only acting role he's ever done. And he currently works as a veterinarian and he still gets royalty payments of like $9 every quarter once a while for that movie. But it
All
was just so
right.
random because I just saw it on Instagram. Yeah, he that's the only acting role he's ever done, and he's just a vet.
Good for him getting those residuals.
Getting those residuals. Yeah, $9 every quarter,
Let's
baby.
go, dude.
Jeez, stack it up.
Yeah, take
Uh,
it.
yeah, so
That's really funny.
yeah, yeah, to be able to still getting those checks in the mail. Imagine being that person that's like, "Hey, did you send Peter Ostrom his check?" And you're like, "Guys, why are we still doing this? It's $9 every quarter. Like, are we really still doing this?"
Yes, and
Uh,
you know what? Good.
Good. Yep, he deserves it. So anyway, back to the movie that we're actually talking about, Snowpiercer.
Yes.
Um,
But you did not care so much for the ending of the
yeah, and I think that's just, and I don't think that's necessarily like I can put that on myself, I think. Partially
Mhm.
personal preference and partially just I realized it was so similar to Loki that it didn't hit in the plot twisting way that it was supposed to hit,
It
you
didn't hit
know.
for you.
And it probably would have been a great plot twist had I not already seen Loki. So if
Yeah.
you've already seen Loki, still watch this movie. But if you haven't seen Loki, definitely watch this movie beforehand because like I said, the way the villain ends
Lest
it.
you get it ruined for you. And same
Yeah.
goes with Willy Wonka.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, and comparing it a little bit to the TV show, because I had a chance to watch the TV show. I haven't finished it, haven't gotten all the way through. I think it kind of depends on what you like about this movie as to whether you'll like the TV show or not. Because like for me, I loved especially the action because I'm a very big action guy. If in case you if you're watching this and you're just now realizing I'm a very big action guy, where have you
you have
been?
not been paying attention.
Yeah. So and I think the action isn't and it's not like Snowpiercer, the TV show doesn't have action, but you know,
Mhm.
it's a TV show. They're not going to be fighting and cutting people up every single second because that's not how TV shows work.
Mhm.
So I'd highly recommend it if you like more of what you like, Ty, with the different explorations of the class systems. Because it starts off very
Yeah.
interesting because Daveed Diggs is like playing a detective character so it's not even the same characters as Snowpiercer, right?
Mhm.
Like those characters, like they took the same concept but put different characters in it. So like Daveed Diggs and Chris Evans are the leads in their respective versions of the story, but they're not playing the same character.
Right.
If that makes any sense, you know, like as they usually do. So that made it a little bit more interesting. You know, Jennifer Connelly is good in her role. Um, I ended up not finishing it because I just didn't end up getting all the way through it. So if someone watches it, they'll have to let me know what they thought once it got to the end because I didn't end up seeing the end of it. I just know I thought the way the action was shot and done, like especially that one scene where they were all fighting and then they had to just stop.
Hmm.
And Chris Evans is standing there with blood on this axe and he's like
Yeah.
breathing all
And the really
intensely and he's
big
just staring at them.
like on the threshold middle before they get to the top.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I remember I was being like, I've never seen an expression with that much rage and hatred
Hmm.
in a long time. I don't think I've like the way that he's conveying it all without words.
Yeah.
That to me, that was Oscar worthy right there. So
Real
that
great
like that
scene.
was the part that drew me in the most to this movie. I thought the action was shot really well, very well executed, and again,
Hmm.
it balanced the message out perfectly.
Yeah. I will say for myself, I did enjoy the action. I liked the candlelit uh scene. Um, I also enjoyed the ending. Personally, I think it really matched a lot of the theming of the film as a whole. A lot of the class structure critiquing that it is doing, I think
Hmm.
it's amplified by that ending. This promise of kind of Chris Evans' character being able to break free from it for himself and himself alone, but still perpetuating it, is, I think, not an uncommon example of how a lot of those same class systems perpetuate in our own real world. And so to see the ending of that being rejected and the Ouroboros of a train, which I just think I like, even metaphorically, because it looks like a snake and it's kind of eating its own tail because the front is using the end to consume itself. And I really like the visual metaphor on top of, see, this is what I mean. Like, I really think it's really well constructed as like a metaphor.
Hmm.
But then having it all kind of like derailed literally, and blown up,
Hmm.
and to see that life still exists with like the polar bear at the very
Yep.
end is just a really great, sweet ending that I think matches the messaging of the film. And I think, in case you guys didn't know, Will's into action. I will love just about any movie that has really solid, consistent theming and good characters. And I think this movie has both. Also, Octavia Spencer is in this movie.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, she was brilliant
and
too.
like rewatching it for this, it made me it like I kind of forgot that she was there, but I was
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, Octavia Spencer's in this, and she's great.
I also think, and again, this is nothing against his performance, but if there's one thing I would change, I probably would have recast Ed Harris because he played Mr. Wilford, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh, Ed Harris is the villain of your movie. Didn't see that coming. Like he plays a villain in everything.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
is the villain. And again, this came out in 2013, so this might have been like him starting to play the villain in everything because I don't really know like he's been acting obviously for a very long time. So I can't tell you when like it really started, but like every time I see his face, I'm just like, "Oh, you're the bad guy."
He's
And
just he's got one of those he's just a smooth talking villain.
it's a
He's got
shame
a
because
villain face.
he's played the villain in some very bad movies. Um, what was that one that came out more recently? It had Gerard Butler. I know you haven't seen it. It was like a disaster movie with Gerard Butler, not Moonfall, but something. Oh, Geostorm. He was in Geostorm with Gerard Butler.
Hmm.
And
I don't think I saw that one. No.
yeah, he was supposed to it was supposed to be a surprise that he was the villain at the end. It was not surprising.
Pick a
You
different
cast
actor.
Ed Harris. Like, what did you expect? So, let us know what you thought of the movie. If you loved it, if you thought it was great, let us know what you thought of the Snowpiercer TV show. If you got a chance to see it, how it compares, which one do you like better? And keep throwing out suggestions on what movies we should do. We're kind of in a bit of I'm not going to say slump, but this episode took so long to come out because there's not that much in theaters right now. Um, so if you have a suggestion, feel free to drop it. And if we've checked it out or if we can check it out, we will. I think the next thing we might do is like Venom: The Last Dance, and I'm still not entirely sure if we want to do that one. So yeah,
Time will
suggestions
tell.
welcome. Yes, time will tell. Suggestions welcome. Please drop them in. And if you're excited to see Chris Evans in Red One, let us know that too.
That's our next one. Absolutely. That's a day oneer for me. A midnight premiere. I'm going to see Red One.
Let me tell you. All right, guys, until next time.
See you then.